Imagine killing an animal today and knowing that most of it could be useless by tomorrow. No refrigerator, no freezer, no plastic container with a date printed on it, just hundreds of kilograms of meat and time working against you. Because once an animal dies, something else immediately wants to eat it. And if that something isn't you, the meat starts changing. For most of human history, food preservation wasn't convenience. It was the difference between having enough food and having none, and humans became remarkably good at solving this problem. They didn't understand bacteria, they didn't understand enzymes, oxidation, or water activity, but they understood something much more important. Food could be changed. If you removed the right thing, added the right thing, or controlled the environment, you could make food last far longer than nature intended. The first trick was brutally simple. Don't let the food stay wet. Dry it. Fresh meat contains a huge amount of water, and water is exactly what many microorganisms need to multiply. So ancient people began doing something surprisingly sophisticated. They sliced meat thin and exposed it to dry air. Sometimes they used heat from a fire. Sometimes they used cold, dry winter air. Sometimes they simply let the sun do the work. The principle was always the same. Remove enough water, and spoilage becomes much harder. But drying had a problem. You still needed the meat to remain edible, portable, and nutritious, and that is where fat became extremely important. Fat contains more than twice the energy per gram of protein or carbohydrate. For people living through harsh winters, that energy could be everything. So they didn't just preserve meat, they preserved calories. Fat could be rendered, stored, and combined with dried meat. The result was something remarkably close to an ancient energy bar. Dried meat, rendered fat, sometimes berries or other ingredients, compact, dense, and capable of lasting for months. This basic idea later became known in North America as pemmican, but there was another preservation technology that required almost no technology at all: cold. If the environment is cold enough, it becomes your freezer. Permafrost. Across large parts of Ice Age Eurasia, the ground stayed frozen year-round. Humans could dig into that frozen ground and create food caches. Meat went underground. The earth itself became the refrigerator. No electricity, no compressor, no cooling system, just frozen ground and knowledge of where to put the food. But cold wasn't useful everywhere. And humans lived in places where the ground never froze. So another ancient technology became essential: salt. Salt preserves food through a completely different mechanism. It draws water out and makes the environment hostile to many microorganisms. That sounds simple now, but imagine discovering it without knowing what microorganisms were. You try salt, the food tastes different, but somehow it lasts. That observation can become knowledge. Knowledge can become tradition, and tradition can become survival technology. But salt wasn't the only chemical trick humans discovered. There was fermentation. Instead of stopping microorganisms, humans learned to control certain ones. Milk could become yogurt or cheese. Vegetables could become fermented foods. Grains could become something entirely different. Fermentation wasn't just preservation, it was transformation. Humans were not merely keeping food from dying, they were turning it into something that could survive longer. And sometimes, the most important preservation technology was smoke. Smoke does several things at once. It helps dry the surface, it adds compounds that can inhibit some microbes, and it gives the food a distinctive flavor. That flavor was basically a side effect of survival. But here's where this gets really interesting. Preserving food wasn't just about keeping yesterday's meal edible, it was about changing the entire rhythm of human life. Because nature doesn't produce food evenly throughout the year. Animals migrate, plants grow during particular seasons, fish arrive in enormous seasonal runs. Then suddenly, the abundance disappears. If you only ate what was available today, winter could kill you. So humans learned to borrow food from one season and spend it in another. That is what preservation really is. It is a way of storing time. A successful autumn hunt could feed people months later. A summer harvest could become winter food. A fish caught during a seasonal run could outlive the river's abundance. And this changed what a human settlement could become. Once food could be stored, people didn't have to consume everything immediately. And once you have stored food, you have a reason to protect it. And once you protect food, you need places to store it. And once you build storage, you can survive periods of shortage. Preservation becomes infrastructure, and infrastructure changes society. Think about what a large animal actually means to a prehistoric community. It isn't dinner, it's a logistical problem. You have to butcher it. You have to move the useful parts. You have to decide what gets eaten first. You have to preserve what can wait. You have to protect the fat. And you have to make sure none of it disappears before winter. That means preservation creates planning. Planning creates roles, and roles create specialization. Someone has to know how much food is enough. Someone has to know where it should be stored. Someone has to remember when it was made. And someone has to remember how to make it again. This is where food preservation becomes something bigger than food. It becomes knowledge, and knowledge has one strange property. It can survive even when the person who discovered it doesn't. A hunter discovers that cold meat lasts longer. His children remember. Their children repeat it. Eventually, nobody remembers who discovered it. They just know that this is how food is kept. That is how survival knowledge becomes culture. But there was another problem. Even preserved food eventually runs out. So humans learned to preserve more than one kind of food: meat, fish, milk, grains, roots, fruits, nuts, seeds, and whatever else the landscape offered. The more methods you had, the less dependent you were on one lucky season. And that principle still exists today. We just have better machines. Your refrigerator is incredibly sophisticated, but conceptually, it is doing something ancient. It slows time down. That is the entire game. Spoilage is a race. Microorganisms multiply, food changes, and eventually, the food loses. Humans learn to change the rules. Remove water, add salt, add smoke, control temperature, control oxygen, control acidity. And suddenly, yesterday's food can become next month's food. But this came at a cost. Preservation takes work. Someone has to hunt. Someone has to butcher. Someone has to cut the meat into pieces small enough to dry. Someone has to keep